Good evening, everyone. I have 6:30 and a quorum of commissioners, so I will open up tonight's Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, October 24th, 2024. We are meeting tonight in the events room of the Mashpee Library, 64 Steeple Street, Mashpee, Mass. This hearing will be recorded and broadcast on Mashpee TV at a later date. Before we begin, if you would like to join me in a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Begin tonight with a moment of silence. Thank you. We will take public comment first for any topics that are not part of tonight's posted agenda. So if there is anyone that would like to address the commission, this would be the time. Nobody here? I don't think we have anybody online. No, we're good. Okay. So I think we'll move right to the hearings that are posted for tonight. We'll start with 126 Waiting Place Road, Stephen F. and Donna M. McDonald. This is a proposed installation and maintenance of a bulkhead. Representative is Falmouth Engineering Incorporated. This hearing is continued from 6/13, 7/25, and 8/22. It is a notice of intent, DEP file number 433292. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Mike Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant along with Angela Tanner from Crawford Land Management. Our client, Donna and Steve McDonald, are in the audience if there's any specific questions for them. This is a continued hearing. We made our initial presentation and went through the plans and what we were proposing to do. This is actually the third meeting. We made our initial presentation, then we met on site with staff to talk about a restoration plan along the areas that might have some temporary disturbance during construction. Crawford Land Management submitted a plan for that. We had a second hearing and there were a few other comments made by commissioners. We continued that, had one final meeting with your staff, and the plan up on the screen now is a result of that. The only difference from this plan as compared to the original plan is Commissioner Cook, I believe, had asked that we superimpose on our plan some of the other elements of construction activities that were approved under a separate order of conditions for reference, so people could see where it was relative to our application. So we superimposed those elements in red on the plan, including the limit of work, and there's active construction on site now to do a landscape wall and pool. We retain the services of a wetland scientist at the request of your staff to do some borings and try to pinpoint what we believed is a historic wetland resource. And it was confirmed by the wetland scientist that sometime in the mid to late 60s, this cove was dredged, probably when New Seabury was being developed to create the canal system. And soil was placed on an area that is now delineated on the plan by a bold dashed line, and it represents the limit of organic peat in a historic salt marsh. Work was done by Brad Holmes of ECR. We were asked by your staff to put that on the plan so that it was on the record for any future reviews. This whole area was developed back at a time when there wasn't even a Wetlands Protection Act. And this is just putting that information on the record. So I think we did what we were asked to do. We're hopeful that you can issue a favorable order of conditions. The wall is continuing to degrade, and we're trying to get the work done so that we can minimize the siltation into the cove and the possible degradation of the rocks any further. And we're both here to take questions.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to say anything first, Angela, or do you want me to go right to the commissioners?
No, I think we've already said
Okay.
everything.
Great. So I will open it up for questions on the parts of this project that are now before us that weren't at our last meeting, or any other parts of the project. All set, Alex? Sandy? Good. So I know one of the comments that we have is a concern about mowing the grass area that would be in this, as you termed it, the historic area. And because it is what it is, we would like to see that the mowing in this area would be either non-existent or at the greatest, once in the spring and once in the fall. But other than that, it should be left in a natural state. So that's one of the comments that
You
came
want to
from
comment on that?
the conservation agents.
So I guess I would like to say that I know that this area is used by the clients actively as a fundraiser site. And so I think they would want to be able to mow it in conjunction with that. I don't know if either of them want to come up and
My son
comment.
was burnt at Shrine, like when he was 14, and he does the fundraiser every year for Shriners Hospital. He's even got his name on a glass wall. They've raised over $100,000, these kids. And they play badminton down at the bottom in that area, and they had before we tore the house down. It's never been an issue.
It's lawn area that connects house to house to house, all along the water. It's all lawn, it's all,
Our next door
it's all
neighbors
cut, next door neighbors who
put
come
in a
here.
pool last year.
It's always been treated as lawns. Now, there is peat there, and that's probably from the dredging. I don't know where the marsh was before or ended, but it's not marsh. There's probably peat that was dumped there, but it's lawn.
Mr. Chairman, could I make a suggestion?
Yep.
Perhaps there could be a condition that we manage the mowing with your staff so that it's done on a somewhat less frequent manner, but in and around the times where they may want to have some sort of function down there.
So when it needed to be done for a function, you would contact staff. And they
Something
would
like that.
look at the window of opportunity.
Our neighbor has the exact same.
It
like,
connects,
it
people
connects
walk
our
from
neighbors.
yard to yard through there, and they'll have no means to.
Yeah, I don't understand why their yards are okay.
They're all the same.
They're all the same.
Well, if they came before the commission and they had the same type of subsoils, it wouldn't be okay.
They
Well,
go
they did.
through and it passed.
They have.
They have. They put in a pool just last summer. So, I don't mind not mowing it as much, but like, just sit there and say, okay, Shriners Hospital,
We just have weeds grow in
Yeah.
the area that has been lawn.
yeah, people have to walk to the boat through that, and you don't want people like picking up ticks and stuff, because, it's just a health thing too for people. I know we're doing all the planting and all the good stuff we can, but we have
Sure.
to take care of the people who live there.
And it would be grass and crabgrass and weeds that grow there. Plantings are laid out down at the.
I could make a suggestion,
Yeah.
maybe, that if we could include some kind of restoration seed mix within this lawn area, something that stays a little bit shorter than, you know, a meadow, for instance, something that stays kind of short that they could mow less frequently, and maybe that would satisfy your needs.
Yes, something like that definitely could, I think. Also, within that, obviously, there's going to be a lot of mitigation going in, so you're going to have a monitoring contract for that. So I think what would be acceptable would be to have in that monitoring contract that when the lawn is going to be mowed, or when you have an event, or whatever it may be, that you would contact staff so we can go evaluate with the landscaper or the horticulturalist, and then proceed from there. And then we would.
Hire a horticulturist every single year will be one of.
Well, no, with the mitigation and monitoring contract, you're gonna have to hire a horticulturalist or a certified landscaper to monitor all the plants. So whoever did that, I would then have them, or they would reach out to us and say, you know, they wanna do one of their biannual mowings, can you?
Deduct this from the profits from the fundraiser. I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous, but all right, whatever.
That would likely be Angela.
Okay,
Yeah, so we usually, the monitoring reports are during the establishment of the mitigation plantings, so we would, I guess, set up some kind of schedule, and then that would,
could you include in the mitigation and monitoring actually as well, like picture of the grass, the current state of the day you do it? Also, if there's any issues with the seed mix that you put down, if bare spots exist or if invasives are coming in.
Right.
Not invasives, but not the seed mix variety that you wanted. Could you include that in the monitoring contract?
yes,
as
we
well?
could, but I'm just wondering then what happens after the mitigation area is
Yeah.
established with the, because obviously they're not going to need monitoring
Yeah, after the
reports
3 years or the 2
perpetually.
years. Yeah. After that time, hopefully there'd be a routine in place, or we could pursue that with the homeowners to just facilitate from there. That's all. So beyond that, I don't see a point in having, you know, a contract that would extend beyond 3 years or anything like that. It would be between the agents, or if it was in their order of conditions, and the homeowner at that point.
Okay. Rich?
Yeah, just a comment, excuse me, as far as not doing, doing it spring and fall, and maybe up to staff, or how many times a year, the access to get down to the dock, whether it be 3 or 4 feet, if that could be done on a weekly basis. I know what she talks about, depending on rain, how high it gets, I mean, you're gonna have people walking through grass and their shorts on, ticks and stuff. So at least if they had an area that is, say, 4 feet wide, that they could walk down to their boat, and really maybe not have a concern with grass hitting above the knees, the thighs, who knows?
People walk along the water though, the other direction.
Yeah.
It's a lawn.
No, I get it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, they'd have the 4-foot wide access regardless, you know, to get to the dock. I mean, that's a given in the regulations. Okay, any other questions or
I do
comments?
think we need to
Alex?
call out that they can mow to the dock. I mean, yes, they're not going to get a violation for that, but I think
Right.
they need to know that they can do that. I'm feeling like it's like too cumbersome to be asking the staff to approve it twice a year. Like, it feels like the staff doesn't have enough time as it is to get proposals before us in a full condition all the time. So I'm thinking, why are we gonna ask someone to ask permission to mow twice a year? If it's lawn, it's lawn, if it's not, it's not. I think it should be a mix that is whatever the native fescue is, so it requires less watering. And I think it should just not be for grass at all, but let them mow if they're gonna mow, because it's ridiculous, I mean, it's a lawn regardless.
Well, we can take that up in deliberations when the motion's made, sure. Any other questions or comments? Dan, is there anything else you would like to add?
No, everything was pretty much met when we met on site. The construction, how you're going to go through rebuilding the wall and then replanting everything, as well as stabilizing the wall while construction is being done. That's huge. The new plans that came in for all aspects of it fully cover all the concerns we had, as well as the check from, was it Brad Holmes? The check from
Yes.
Brad Holmes that came up to show that it was, in fact, either a peat dump or whatnot. It's hydric soils, in other words, so.
Yep.
No, I think everything was met by you guys, and yeah, I think the project absolutely can be conditioned as is, whether it be with an annual mowing or whether it be with just choosing the type of grass they can have with a no fertilizer, something like that, I think could also be acceptable, so.
Okay. Questions from the public? None? Okay. I'd accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to close an issue for 126 Waiting Place with the submission of a signed 3-year contract between the homeowner and a wetland consultant. And that the lawn area is to be a native, meet our lawn standards.
You can choose, you can go with like a micro clover, or you could just say our lawn standard there. That outlines it completely. It basically says it has to be a 10% or less bluegrass mix, and then there's some fertilizer regimens you have to adhere to. That's all.
Yeah, I would say no fertilizer, but
Okay.
maybe just get started.
Per regulation 31, is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second?
No, it's better than,
Rich?
it's better than all the alternatives.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion, deliberations by commissioners. Nothing further? Take a roll call vote. Rich?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Okay, so, oh, after, to the claim. Yeah, I got you. I thought you wanted me to ask them. Yeah.
It was approved, guys.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I was gonna say, Mike, you're still up, so.
I'm still,
Now calling the 6:33 hearing for 416 Monomoskoye Road. Kirk, John Franklin, and Don Gordon Franklin, trustees, Seaside Realty Trust, proposed construction of a new one-car garage with a second-story living space and small expansion of an existing deck. Representative is Falmouth Engineering. This hearing is continued from 9/26. It is a notice of intent, DEP file number 433316.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering. I represent the applicant, Dawn Franklin. Dawn is in the audience tonight if there's any specific questions for her. This is, again, a continued hearing. I felt that the initial hearing went fairly well. There were some bookkeeping matters and a couple comments from, I think, Commissioner Cook. The bookkeeping matters where we discovered there were 2 outstanding certificates of compliance for work that had been done back in the early 2000s. So we continued the hearing to allow us to apply for those. That has been done. There was some request to consider containing roof runoff with dry wells and to contain the small driveway connection, runoff on site. So we have added to the plan dry wells for roof runoff. We've shown very specific grading so that the driveway will be graded. The grass area adjacent to the house, the existing grass area, will be graded in a way that any surface water from the driveway would sheet flow over that grass, and it would actually go into the area where we're proposing the 1,500 square feet of native plantings. So there'd be a natural filtering system, and the amount of runoff from the project is really quite de minimis. Most of it now will be contained in the roof, the dry wells for the roof runoff. So I think there's a revised plan, October 16th, that shows that we added dry wells and a dry well detail and some proposed spot elevations. This was in response to comments from Commissioner Cook. And I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions from commissioners?
My only question was, we also were wondering what we wanted a pervious material on the driveway. that.
Yeah, there was talk about a pervious driveway, or at least finding a way to contain the runoff. So we would really prefer that the driveway not be pervious because it's right outside of a garage, and it's difficult to keep that from tracking into the garage. It's also difficult to keep it maintained for snow. It's easier if it's bituminous concrete. So we're hopeful that the regrading of the driveway so that the small amount of surface runoff would be contained and not run into any wetland resource. So that's what our hope was, but we defer to you when you deliberate.
Thank you.
Other questions? No? Mike, would it be possible to put some trench drains on either end of that driveway so that it wouldn't run out onto that cobble apron and out onto the street?
Absolutely, it could be, and that'd be,
Just as some insurance, you know?
sure.
Wouldn't have to go into much. I don't think you'd be getting a lot off there, but
Yeah, I think we could,
whatever, after you regrade, you know, if we get one of those flash storms like we typically get nowadays, it might not be a bad idea to have something there for an insurance policy.
I think that's appropriate if you could condition it that way.
My other question was the living space above the garage itself. What is the plan for the living space? Is that going to be part of the house, or will it be deemed an additional bedroom? I know the house is permitted for 4 now. To go to that 5th bedroom, it opens up a whole
Yes, no,
can of worms.
there's no intention to increase the number of bedrooms from 4. And the health agent would be the gatekeeper on that when you apply for the building permit, but maybe Dawn can speak to what that space is going to be used for.
That space would be used as a family room. The current situation when you go upstairs is there's one room, and that one room is a kitchen and a family room all in one. And we have 4 adult grown children in our families growing, so we would like to be able to utilize the space for having more living space.
Okay. Does this go before ZBA?
Yes, it's pending. Chris Corain's handling that application.
Okay, and they would see all the interior plans as well, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. I have no other questions. Dan, is there anything you want?
So real quick with the COCs, are you amendable and acceptable to having those included in the conditions to be covered before any work would be taking place on the building? Because those COCs are on the next hearing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, before any work can take
Yeah,
place.
before-
Yes, before, building permit would be issued or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
want to make sure for that.
Sure.
Other than that, I think this project is acceptable. Putting the dry wells in, the French drain, as the chairman suggested, I think will control the runoff, as well with a large amount of mitigation. That's going to be a nice buffer that doesn't exist currently. So I think that would be great for this. So that's it for me.
Okay. Questions from the public? None? Then I would accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to close an issue for 416 Mashpee Road with the condition of a drain being dug along the edge of the driveway to keep water from going onto the road, and the signed 3-year contract between the homeowner and a wetland consultant for monitoring the mitigation plantings. Or horticulture.
And the closing of the COCs.
And the closing of the COCs prior to work commencing.
Okay. Is there a second? Thank you, Rich. Motion made and seconded. Up for discussion amongst commissioners only. Anything else? Good. Sandy, you all set with that?
Yes,
Okay. I'll take a roll call vote. Rich? Thank you. Alex?
Yes.
Thank you. Sandy?
yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
hearing for 26 Pembroke Drive, Heidi M. Delacqua, trustee, Heidi M. Delacqua, 2017 Trust. This is a proposed raise and replace of a single-family dwelling with decks, hardscaping, landscaping, mitigation, planting, and denitrification Title V septic system. Representative is Merrill Engineers. This is continued from September 26th. The notice of intent, DEP file number 433315. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. For the record, Tim Santos from Merrill Engineers representing the applicant. This project was before you a few weeks ago, at which time we discussed the project and the board asked for a few more items. So we supplied the waiver request from section 20, regulation 25. We supplied nitrogen calcs. Existing was 20 milligrams per liter and proposed is reduced down to 9.8. It was requested that we supply a foundation plan. We've supplied the foundation plan. And we've also supplied a landscape plan that shows the reduction of the lawn from 2,700 square feet down to 900 square feet, as well as the specific species and spacing for the mitigation plantings. The site plan was revised too, just to kind of reference the landscape plan. So we're hoping that the board can close and approve this project tonight, and I'd address any concerns you might have.
Thank you. Questions or comments from commissioners?
What did you say, the lawn?
Originally, it's 2,700 square feet plus or minus, and it's being reduced to 900 square feet to meet the 10%. I believe that's in regulation 31.
It doesn't say that only the area proposed in the mitigation plantings is only 310 square feet?
That's the mitigation for the increase of the footprint within, if you look at the notice of intent application.
Is that a 1-to-1 ratio, or what?
No, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, there's a mitigation table. And it shows,
But you're in
it shows,
the flood zone.
correct.
I don't understand how that calculation,
So it would have to be 2 to 1
it has to be 2-to-1
as a
ratio.
minimum, right?
Right, so a
In the
2-to-1 ratio
resource
is more than 310 square feet for the addition house. Was this talked about last time?
I don't believe we got to the mitigation. There were the other issues that, there was the waiver and flood vents and a few other things.
Okay. But this is, so it's saying the net change though is 136 square feet?
Square feet, correct.
So then the 300 would be more than 2-to-1. So it's 300 square feet, so this table.
You're looking at a reduction of 136.
There's an overall reduction of 136 square feet, but if you go in accordance with your mitigation table in those 5-foot increments,
Yeah.
Right.
okay, so each zone, we're showing what exists in each zone and what's proposed in each zone. And overall, there's 136 square foot actual decrease within that development. But we can't claim the 136 square feet. If you follow each of the zones from 0 to 10, 10 to 15, it explains what exists and then what's proposed in that zone. And then the proposed change, is multiplied by the ratio for the mitigation requirement. If it's a negative, we're not multiplying it by 5 or 3, we're just claiming the credit of the reduction within that zone.
Yes. And it's been really tricky because there is no buffer to the floodplain.
Mhm.
So,
So this is the buffer basically to the top of the bank.
right.
So that's how the mitigation was calculated.
Buffer at the bank.
Anything else? Is there a call-out on these plans for what the mitigation consists of?
Yes, it's shown on the landscape plan, the specific species.
Oh, sorry, we're on the wrong plan, sorry about that. The reason I'm asking that, when I looked at the GIS layers for this parcel, the velocity zone, and I know you can't go exactly by the layers as they're rendered on the computer program, but the velocity zone is right there. I mean, it's right on the boundary of the property, the rear of the property, facing towards the pond. But there's no mention of that.
It's shown on our plan. If you look on our site plan, it's shown in the orange dashed dot line along the, basically,
I see it.
right to the, I guess that'd be east of the property line.
So my concern is when it's that close, given the kinds of storms we get these days, did you give some thought to the types of plants that you're going to put in there to resist a tremendous
We
amount?
did talk with the landscape architect, and we did talk about it being a flood zone, and that we needed to, he needed to propose plants that would survive within that environment.
Okay.
Yeah, but Joe, why we switched for us, Carolyn, I mean, this isn't, those aren't like shrubby, it's not like a shrubby wooded buffer. It's like a really low. I mean, I feel like you're better off with like high tide bush. At least there's beach ones, but.
I just wanted to bring it up for consideration. I didn't know if you picked up on how close that was to the V zone.
Right, like if it's gonna be inundated, it might as well be already things that can handle it. We can condition that if everything else.
Tim, these are standard size flood vents.
Yes, they are. There's the typical smart vents.
And what's the elevation of the vent from the finished grade? I think I see it matching.
I believe that says 1 foot max from the grade to the bottom of the
Yeah,
vent.
1, 3, and 15, 16, so 1 foot 4 inch.
That's a flood zone building code
Yeah.
standard.
And the It's just a crawl space underneath the entire building.
It's a, you can call it a crawl space, but it's like 2 feet max. So it's just more, so that it's
You
kind
can't
of
crawl in.
crawl in, yeah.
You might crawl in, you won't crawl out, right?
It's very shallow.
Other questions?
Yeah, just, the proposed patio and the walkway, what type of material are you going to be using?
It'd be a paver type system,
Pervious?
pervious, yeah.
I have neighbors in my house, they're not that big, pervious. Every time it rains, it holds a lot, but.
I think it really depends on the construction and how people build it, whether the subgrade is used with stone dust or sand or stone. So if you build it correctly to be pervious, it will drain. Again, I'm not sure how
Yeah.
yours is built, you know, in a big rainstorm, you know, everybody just has to deal with it, but under normal rainstorms, it drains through.
What's the standard space, Tim, between the pavers?
I mean, everyone's different, you know, I'll tell you what we're doing in Falmouth. If you can stick a screwdriver between it, the building inspector's fine with it and calls it pervious. So that allows enough space for the water to drain through. And it's kind of just filled in with sand.
Sandy, any questions or comments? No? Anything else? Good, Alex? Dan?
So real quick, on the mitigation plan, would you be amenable to taking Carolina Rose out? That spreads extremely aggressively.
Yeah, I'm not a landscape,
not
I'm not a
taking that,
landscape
but just
architect, so I would say whatever the staff of the board feels is suitable for that area,
Could be-
you can condition
Okay,
that.
excellent. So
I'm
we
fine
can
with it.
discuss that then.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
With the landscaper, basically, to have that changed. Just the Carolina Rose, it spreads extremely aggressively, and especially in this area, where as you know, there's like the bank going down, the walking path down on the bank, it's just gonna spread really hard in that area, so I would have that changed. Everything else, as they mentioned, the VE zone is very close, but the property itself and all the work is being conducted within the AE zone, so that's a good distinction to make. The revised narrative and the submission of the waiver bring this application into what is needed, and the reduction of the lawn by, gosh, almost a little over 1,000 square feet. So, was that what it was?
It's 1,800 square feet.
1,800, so, yeah, so 900 square feet. all right.
seed mix is counting as that reduction?
So the native seed mix is not lawn, there's only a true 900 square feet of lawn.
So
Okay,
like
okay.
anything with like the little X's?
With the little X's, that's
Not
just,
kinda-
that's not lawn. It's just gonna be a native seed mix.
So there'd be no fertilizer?
No fertilizer, nothing.
And what is the mowing for that?
It'll-
Once a year to keep
It'll
out
just be
vegetation?
to keep whatever, you know, kind of whatever works as far as maintenance for the homeowners. You know, they explained to me that it doesn't grow extremely high and it's not thick, so you can kind of, the landscaper said you can kind of walk through it. It's just like a wildflower meadow type native mix.
Yeah, I've maintained those, and it's not easy to maintain a pollinator meadow to be an effective pollinator meadow, because bittersweet and other things will take over. So there would need to be a plan to maintain it as such, so that it's not.
So in the mitigation and monitoring contract, that's gonna have to be made for this project, whether it be a 1, 2, or 3 year. I think part of it should be just assessing the lawn itself, just to make sure if there is bittersweet, hand pull it, you know, things like that are coming in, just hand pull it, also address it. Also within this, I think an acceptable condition would be, since it is that if parts of the lawn start to die off and cannot be maintained, that they contact staff, and they're gonna have to go about putting the appropriate lawn in. Or if part of the lawn, say, 6 square feet, 10 square feet end up dying, they have to put back a microclover or a native fescue mix.
Are you having the lawn or the?
No,
native
not the
seed
lawn,
mix area?
the native seed mix area.
Okay,
Yeah,
just.
yeah, I'm sorry. So I think that would be acceptable.
That's fine.
Therefore, if anything happens in the future, that it can be covered for, and if anything big happens, say they lose over 50% of it, they're gonna have to contact staff to facilitate having it replaced.
Not a problem at all.
Okay,
So like that area is not to become lawn.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to see how that does in the next couple of years, next summers, and then assess it from there. If it's working out good and they're just hand pulling the invasives, if they show up, you know, all good. If not, then we'll have to discuss it from there on whether they're gonna have to come, they're gonna have to replace it in kind with whatever wildflower mix, or if they're gonna have to file something else, just to, an RDA or something, just to get something else in place.
Not a problem.
All right.
Anything else? We're good. Were there any other comments?
No, that was pretty much it. Yeah, the biggest thing was the waiver, just because it wasn't submitted last time, but everything in the waiver is covered now, so that's not a problem. So yeah, nothing from me.
Okay. Questions or comments from the public? Doesn't seem to be any. I would accept the motion.
I'll make a motion to close an issue for 26 Pembroke Drive with a, what do we want, a 3-year mitigation plan?
Yeah, I would go with 3-year only because they have the large area of the native seed mix, so I would go with 3-year.
Okay, 3-year maintenance contract to, and to monitor the native seed mix area when it needs to be replaced, to contact staff before replacing,
And to work with staff.
and to work with
Yes.
staff on the mitigation plan.
I'll second.
Okay, so motion made and seconded. Close and issue 3-year maintenance contract and the mitigation plantings to be established in conjunction with conservation staff, correct? Okay. And Alex, you seconded that, right?
I did.
Okay. Open for deliberations amongst commissioners. You good with everything?
Yes.
All set? Anything else, Alex, before I call? Good. Okay, roll call vote. Rich? Thank you. Alex?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Dan, do you want these? I know I said.
Yes, please. I'm sorry about that. Thank you very much. Gonna check if I got it up here.
Now calling the hearing for 80 Whippoorwill Circle, Stanley M. and Nina C. Hargis, trustees, Stanley and Nina Hargis Trust. This is a proposed lift of an existing single-family dwelling onto a raised foundation, construct and maintain a new addition to the existing single-family dwelling, install associated appurtenances, dry well installations. The representative is Cape and Islands Engineering. This is continued from October 10th to notice of intent hearing, DEP file number 433317. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Chuck Rowland, Cape and Islands Engineering. I'm here in front of you again, representing the owners of 80 Whippoorwill Circle. I'll just kind of pick up where we left off at the last meeting. So I've submitted house plans to you that I think you were mostly concerned about the flood vents, which are depicted on the house plans. I've also provided the waiver form for you. And then to go over briefly with the revisions to the plan, we've proposed to remove the existing gravel driveway, except for an area for one parking space up on the northwest side. We've added the rinse station and gravel drip edge, as well as a yard drain that's right next to it to collect any runoff. We've also proposed native planting that includes Tupelo, sassafras, bayberry, as well as inkberry. And just to recap, this project is a coastal resilience project to protect the property during significant storm events, and that's the real reason why we're doing this work. And I believe that this addresses your comments from the last hearing, and with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Okay, I will open it up to commissioners first. Questions you might have. Anything? You good? Rich? All set? So this is a 4-bedroom system that was put in November of 2023, is that correct?
I don't have all the information about the current septic, but it is an IA, it's a sludge hammer, and so it meets the requirements for the health department, and it's not being, the flow's not being altered.
Okay, and you would still have to go back to Board of Health because of the additional living space that's being added, or no?
Not to my knowledge. But
Is that, does Board of Health have to sign up on this?
I mean, the health department does.
I was going to say, I think the health department will have to sign off because they'll be within the septic's capacity.
Right.
So,
And so I've already spoken with the director, and
Zach?
yeah, and it meets the requirements because, you know, they're mostly concerned about flow.
Right, so there's no increase in flow?
There's no increase in flow.
From the core system that's currently permitted?
That's correct.
One of the things, and it's part of this project, but I also see it in others that I want to at least bring to the attention of the commission. When these waivers are being filed, a lot of times we see waivers for Regulation 25, but the applicant is using the waiver requirements from Regulation 12. And if you look closely at the waiver language in Regulation 12, as opposed to the language in Chapter 172, 7A3, it's different language. So I think in terms of consistency, and we've addressed this at subcommittee level, we haven't brought that forward yet, but we are going to. When we have a waiver request for mitigation, then the language in Regulation 12 is appropriate. But when we have waiver requests for other regulatory language, it should be more in line with the language that you see in 172.7A3. Case in point, this particular job refers to it. It says waiver of requirements, chapter 172.7A3, but then it goes on to use the language from regulation 12, which is completely different. So I want to, just bring that up to your attention. It doesn't really have a bearing here, but there are projects that will come along that it will have a bearing on. So with that in mind, I just wanted to make note of that. Okay, Dan, is there, oh, yes,
Mind
sir.
if I ask a general question
Sure,
related to
you
this?
can come right up, sir.
Is it the intention, because it came up at my hearing too,
Yeah.
is it the intention of the commission to have the A, B, and C, that you see, the compelling need, and then the step from that? And is it the intention of a waiver to have those requirements? Because that, like compelling need, is not in the bylaw in 7.3A. It's,
Right.
I guess which, moving forward, are you hoping to see? It was kind of, it's not really applicable, it's applicable to all the projects, but like that compelling need wording is nowhere in your bylaw. I reviewed that after the hearing the other night. So yeah, it's just a confusion all around.
Right. One of the things that catches my eye, when you do look at the waiver language in Chapter 172, Section 7, not Regulation 12, but the bylaw itself, it refers to the commission may, it doesn't say it has to, but it may grant a waiver from the regulations for Chapter 172 only upon a finding by the commission that a project will improve the natural capacity of the resource area to protect the wetland values identified in Section 1 of the bylaw. Further, any waiver pursuant to this subsection will only be granted when, and then it goes on for some other conditions. So it's a completely different approach to waivers. And when you go back to the very beginning of it, it says such waivers are intended to be granted only in rare and unusual cases, and only when resource protection would be enhanced relative to pre-existing conditions. So it caught my eye. We discussed it in subcommittee. We're not done discussing that. But when I look at the two waiver regulation languages, it's like night and day. So we are going to have to come to some agreement as to what the language is going to be moving forward. And maybe when Regulation 25 is brought forward to the public and gets passed, if it does, there may not be as much of a need for waivers, because this all started with the problem of the setback issues in 25. So people are falling back into 12 to use that, and my thought is you should be in the bylaw itself. So I just want to bring up the difference.
Your own commission has reviewed a bunch of waiver requests in the past,
Right.
and they were all associated with the wording in 12. But
Right.
whatever, however you decide it should be proceeded in
Yeah, like
the
I said,
future.
it's
is-
on the
is fine.
table in subcommittee, so, to be continued. But I wanted to bring that forward to the commission tonight, because I continually see applications of that as we move along. Okay. No other questions? Dan, anything you wanted to add?
No, everything was met. I think that the planting and of the parking area and keeping one spot is a great compromise for this, mainly because you're getting more in there, and sassafras is a fantastic species for this part of town, and I'm like seeing that there. So, but I think that's a good compromise overall, as well as the amount of dry wells. What's that, 5 for that whole property? So that's going to be huge for that property. So I think it's good to go.
Okay. Questions from the public? None? Then I would accept the motion.
I'll make a motion to close an issue for 80 Willow Circle. I don't think I have any.
3-year mitigation contract plantings.
Yeah, I would say 1 or 2 year, only because it's just mainly trees and there's not too many of them. So
Maybe a 2-year.
yeah, 2 years.
Contract.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made and seconded by Rich. Further discussion, deliberations by commissioners? No? Good. Okay, roll call vote. Rich?
Yes.
Thank you. Alex?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now calling the hearing for 24 Secaucet Point Road, Joshua and Nicole Delman. Proposed construction and maintenance of a new single-family dwelling with detached garage, hardscaping, landscaping appurtenances, Title V septic, and construction of dock with timber walkway. Representative is Cape and Islands Engineering. This hearing is continued from 9/26 and 10/10. It is a notice of intent, DEP file number 433313. Good evening.
Good evening, Mark Dibb with Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant, Joshua Delman, 24 Secaucet Point Road. We did, based on feedback we received from the commission, we did resubmit a new site plan as well as via email an outline of the project changes. I'll just go through that list and then take any additional questions. So number one, we did move the house back and essentially connected it. So now we have an attached garage. The garage did not move, but it is, the corner is pegged at the front yard setback, so it cannot move any further. So we did make that adjustment to the property. Another architectural feature was that the garage doors would now face out to Secaucet Point. It just kind of changes the configuration of the driveway. The house is now currently proposed as a 4-bedroom house, so we believe a Board of Health filing or variance is not required. I did perform an additional test pit. I found groundwater lower than, a little bit higher than the 2010 dated test pits, but lower than the adjusted groundwater value that we used for, to identify groundwater on the plan. One thing that moving the house did was shorten some of the runs on the septic system. So we are now achieving a 6.2-foot separation to groundwater for that system that is also an IA system. So we believe there's, the septic system is adequately designed. We did make an adjustment, 2 adjustments to the pier. I believe one, we increased the height over the BVW and salt marsh to 6 feet. So we now meet the 1.5 height to width ratio for that area. Looks like I didn't note it, but I believe all the decking, I forget if we had it originally, all the decking is now to be graded decking that allows light through for the entire length of the pier. Back to, we did add the darker green areas is over 1,800 square feet of area that we plan to restore, similar to mitigation. There's a planting list. It'll be a mostly shrubby native vegetation. So those areas will be restored and have similar characteristics to mitigation areas. I did make a note regarding flood vents on this area of plan. Given the amount of square footage of that lower level that will be on this dwelling, there will be 21 200 square foot inch vents. The architectural change by connecting this house to the garage, it's a significant change. It was impossible to have fully designed foundation plans, to resubmit to the board. It will meet flood zone requirements, building code requirements. I did identify that it will have flood vents as required by building code. Respectfully request that that is sufficient for building design, as well as I revised the waiver request to just state the setback, the section it's being requested from. However, as we just talked about, it has the verbiage from the compelling need verbiage. So we, in the future, we will be straightening out that type of thing. So I believe we answered the commission's concerns best we could, and I'd like to have any additional questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Questions?
Mark, I'm thinking it is a typo, but it says the dark green area is proposed ornamental landscaped areas on the call-out on the label for the dark green area, and
Which label?
I think it's
Oh,
supposed to be
yeah.
native.
Yes. Yeah. So that call out, upper middle, should just not exist, because it is called it's called 463 square foot of restoration below that, and then another 909 square foot of restoration. So that, yes, where your cursor is, that should just be deleted.
Other questions or comments? Sandy? Good?
Yep.
Was that all, Alex, that you had? Or? I'm not
I
rushing.
mean, we didn't bring it up last time, so I feel a little guilty bringing it up this time. I'm just curious, looking at the locus map, it shows on like the northern side of the property that there's like a driveway or a road on the other side of it. I'm just wondering if like developing this lot will change the runoff down that. And it's, you know what I'm saying?
So I think, yeah, what you're saying is that where it says 18 and 20, there
Yeah.
appears to be a driveway. I think that is just a driveway that accesses 20.
Right.
Because
and then
they
like that dog.
I mean, we do, the intent of the grading, you'll see on the north side, if you go back to, there's some contours that's basically identifies a swale coming down, like on the southern side near the one dry well, right? Yep, almost just up and a little bit left, there's an 8-foot contour that's in the shape of a U, a sideways U.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's to signify a swale, kind of, and actually there's a swale identified. So, I mean, I believe runoff from the front of the site the intention is that it'll make it by on the property towards the water, any kind of surface runoff. So, we're not sending water towards that driveway.
Right.
We're not, we're adding the structure, obviously, but we're not grading per se, other than as minimal as possible over the leach field. We've even used the galleys that are only 1 foot high versus we try to use
What is the purpose of the mulch? Like that amount of mulch?
Other than other than we're trying to keep lawn to 10%. We could, part of the intention was against the grass. If we have restoration right again, and really, our only grass is a 4 or 5 foot strip around the house at this point, with a little bit more right in that front section, 10 feet or so. It's just to be able to maintain some vegetation versus needing to not touch it, just to be able to continue to have that access around. Really, this.
To just define the lawn, because
Yes.
the mulch
It'll still have plants in it. I didn't specify,
So it's like, just like another ornamental landscaping bed, basically?
essentially.
I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
Yep.
Anything else? Good. One of the concerns I have, Mark, do you have the letter from the Division of Marine Fisheries?
I don't think I have a hard
I just
copy
wanted
of
to
that.
point out something on that letter.
Everything but that.
That was issued on September 27th. We did have this letter at the last meeting.
Yeah, I probably did.
But anyways, for commissioners that don't have the letter, there's one paragraph in here that I want to make sure that you guys are aware of this. It says, it's the fourth paragraph down, the Little River acts as winter flounder spawning habitat. Winter flounder enter the area and spawn from January through May. Demersal eggs hatch approximately 15 to 20 days later. The Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission has designated winter flounder spawning habitat as a habitat area of particular concern. They refer to it as HAPC. In the previous stock assessments, the winter flounder stock was classified as overfished, with spawning stock biomass in 2019 estimated to be only 32% of the biomass target. Spawning stock biomass in 2021 was estimated to be 101% of the biomass target based on the new recruitment stanza focusing only on the past 20 years. Given the new status of the winter flounder stock, every effort should be made to protect the species in its spawning habitat. With that in mind, I'm looking at the window of opportunity to construct the dock itself. And if they're there, spawning from January through May, and the eggs hatch 20 days later, we're really looking at a 6-month window off the table. So my concern, if this project is to be approved, that any work in constructing this dock would only take place between June and December, so as to protect the integrity of that species. I know we always go to the shellfish constable and worry about the cohogs, but we should be also concerned about the fish habitat, especially this particular species, which has been on the decline. So I didn't know if you had seen that. And for you, Mark, I just wanted to point out, and I don't know if you've taken the time to do this, but I would encourage you to. When these letters come out, they give all of their references. And I don't know if you've read John Logan's letters and white papers on stock constructions or dock constructions, but they're pretty informative. They basically don't agree with the 65% light penetration. According to Logan's research, any dock and pier is going to diminish the biomass of the salt marsh no matter what you do, whether you put in degraded decking, whether you space it, whatever you do. It's almost common sense. Another thing I picked up on is the orientation of the docks. They prefer them to be north-south with no more than a 10 degrees differential for shading purposes. And this dock is like the worst-case scenario. It's east-west. I mean, you have to work with what you have. I get that. So I'm glad that the decking is all graded, but it's going to reduce biomass on both the BVW and the salt marsh, no matter what you do. So I'm always concerned about the cumulative effect when I go on these sites, and on this one particularly, you stand and you look down the little river, you can't see the water anymore. There's so many docks and so many boats, and that's, for a conservation commissioner, that should be a concern. But anyways, I just wanted to point that out. No other questions, Dan? Anything you want to?
No, all the revisions that were made are actually quite the big changes to the whole project, moving the house back, changing things, keeping it in a 4-bedroom, things like that. So as the chair was saying, the biggest thing I think for this project would be a time-year restriction for the dock installation. Obviously, the house has to be installed first, so I think that could be very easily feasible. And as well with the 10% lawn, having it laid out like that is perfectly great. With the horticulture, with the mulched areas, that's perfectly fine to have those in ornamental beds, especially on the southern lot line where the neighbor doesn't look to have too much vegetation on his property. So that would, what I mean by that is we'd probably be cutting it back on his side, so it'd be no point in having a native bed there. So, but with all the changes, I think this will be huge to the resource area, especially with the restoration planting that's going to be taking place. So yeah, all good with me.
Questions from the public? None? I would accept the motion.
Make a motion to close an issue at 24 Council Point Road with conditions of the only dock work to be done from June to December, and 3-year monitoring plan on the plantings.
Yep. Restoration and mitigation.
Restoration and
Yep.
mitigation.
3-year. Okay. Anything else, Rich? That's it? Good. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sandy. Motion made and seconded. Up for deliberations amongst commissioners. Any? Yes, Alex.
So I am happy with the changes to the house, and I think I could get over it and help, like, be okay with agreeing to the house. I'm struggling with this being a new lot construction with the house and dock. I don't think that the pier is necessary. I don't think you can say that it would be beneficial to the resource area. For both, I think it being a wooded lot is beneficial to the resource area. So I'm voting no on that, but I just wanted to.
Because of the dock component?
Yeah. I think they did a great job with the house. I think they met our concerns with the house. And
Right.
I appreciate that. It's a dock with philosophy.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's responsible, but.
Other thoughts? I believe that there's been some really good concessions made with the construction of the dock, raising the elevation, putting the grading in. The reason I brought up the materials from Division of Marine Fisheries is because of the concern for the habitat. I mean, it's a sensitive area. And I kind of feel the same way. The house has really done leaps and bounds as far as what we're seeing here. I know that even the reduction to the 4-bedroom, when it was here before it was 5, and I wasn't at all satisfied with that. But I'm having a hard time with the dock myself.
Like, I don't think just because every one of the neighbors has one that, like, oh, well, okay, we've messed up in the past, no, they should have one too. Like, I think at some point, new construction, these lots that haven't been touched, that are performing an ecosystem function,
Right.
we're taking that function away. How is it, I just don't understand how it's not being harmful to the resource area.
Right. The one thing that I'm struggling with is Regulation 27, and I've scoured through that, and it does meet all of the standards that we have in Regulation 27. And the applicant is willing to not do any construction on the dock between June and December, which was really my biggest concern for those winter flounder. The orientation of the dock, you can't change at all. It's the worst case scenario, east-west. It's a constant shadow from sun up to sundown. So, I'm struggling with it myself, but I don't really, I can't hang my hat on regulatory language to say it can't be done.
Yeah, it is unfortunate, and I understand what you're saying, both of you are saying completely, but the dock and everything does meet our regulatory language, especially.
I think the way it's written, there's also in there, I don't think the way it's written, we would have to say yes to it. I think,
Right.
I mean, what happens if that salt marsh underneath it completely goes away? If this is built and then the salt marsh goes away, we can't really hold them to rebuild the salt marsh in the ocean. So like, what's the contingency plan? Like, I don't know.
One of the, what you can look at is the fact that there's a cumulative effect, dock after dock after dock after dock, and at some point there is an adverse effect, such as what you're saying. Another thing that I have in mind is all of the new data that's now coming available with coastal zone management and the DEP for coastal resiliency layers to be looked at. And I took that data viewer and pulled it up immediately. And when you look at as close as 2030, the state is showing this area as being a completely different floodplain configuration. And that's supposed to be the generous calculation. If you take it to 2050, because this is a structure that, quite honestly, I don't think anybody in the room is going to argue the fact they're not building it to tear it down before 2050.
Right.
When you get to 2050, it's even worse. So there's going to be a lot of changes. Any lot, not just this one, but any lot that's got the highest elevation on a lot is, say, 5, 6, 8 feet. Those lots are all going to be completely different in the very near future. And, some people would say, well, that's all speculation. Well, it no longer is. There's all data now. The Morris Data Viewer is an eye-opener. And we saw that when the Cape Cod Commission came to our last quarterly meeting.
Right.
And we're going to see a lot more of it at our next quarterly meeting on the 7th, when the coastal zone management people come in and start talking about coastal resiliency layers. So, yeah, I hear where you're coming from. I do. Anything else from commissioners?
No, I understand what Alex is saying, and I think I mentioned that I'm an avid fisherman, so I think the concession of not doing any construction during that time is huge, because I do fluke fish a lot, and there is a decline, and I'd like to see it go the other way, but
Sure.
I think it's good that we're not going to do construction during that time.
Anything else from commissioners? I know Mark wants to say something, but I didn't want to let him into our deliberations until we were wrapped up with it. We're good? All right, Mark, I'll listen.
Thank you. I just wanted to state that, and I know you just mentioned new research and documents and DEP stuff. This dock was previously approved and licensed, and you see there's a dashed smaller float. And then in 2022, we came before this commission with the moving the float out that 10 feet or so, and the commission approved that amendment. Two members on that approved amendment are sitting at the table right now. And just regulations have not, your local bylaw and Wetlands Protection Act regulations have not changed. I don't have an attorney sitting next to me. I felt the concessions we made, we meet the regulations that are set by the state and the local commission. And I do feel that this project is still similar to 2022, when this commission voted to approve it then. No regulations regarding the pier have changed, and I do believe it's a permittable pier.
So we approved the pier on a lot without a house attached to that proposal? 'Cause that's not
Correct.
something we typically do.
There was,
No,
there was a legal reason that it was allowed.
There was an amended order of conditions. There was an order
Oh,
of
yes.
conditions that was allowed for the house to be built. You can't just come in and build a dock on an empty lot.
Right, that's what
Correct.
I'm asking.
So they proposed, somebody proposed a house, and then they amended the order to do the dock.
And then that expired.
Correct, yes, and both of those have since expired. But yes, there was a legally permitted house, so then the dock was
Right, and
allowed to be.
both those documents are out the window on expiration date, so.
So that's why this lot here currently has some clearing in it because the previous order, they
Right.
started the process and just never followed through with it, so.
I mean, 3 of the 4 of us sitting at the table are on the subcommittee, and we understand and fully realize the need for upgrading the regulatory language that we have. It's just not meeting the environmental conditions of the present, let alone what's coming down the pipe. You know, things are going to change around here dramatically in a very short period of time. You can see it already. So there is a need. But right now, the language, as Mark said, is on the table, and that's what we have to work with.
Yeah, the language is on the table, and I think the best, I don't want to say if you're going to approve it or not, but if you do, the best thing from there would be to use this as a case study for your bylaw review subcommittee to say, you know, floats and docks like this should be restricted from velocity zones or whatever it may be. I know velocity zones for me when it comes to floats are a big concern, as well as throughout the Cape, because I know some towns have regulations on them. So I think that's a good case study to take into the future for this, honestly.
And again, I'll remind you that you can always look at the cumulative effect and feel as though you can't get beyond the adverse effects of a particular project, then you can use that language. The argument will be that it meets performance standards, so then it would be left for an appeal process to figure out. Anything else before I call for a vote? We're good? Okay, Rich?
Yes.
Thank you. Alex?
No.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I will reluctantly vote yes, but I will also say that there is a dire need for looking very closely at coastal resiliency layers and what we're actually doing to preserve the environment. So the motion carries 3-1.
Thank you.
Thank you. Calling the hearing for 24 Pompanesett Island Road, 260 Heath Street Realty Trust. This is a proposed reconstruction of existing timber, pile-driven pier in existing footprint, installation of a ramp and floats, representatives Cape and Islands Engineering. This is continued from October 10th. It's a notice of intent, DEP file number 433318. Good evening.
Good evening. Chuck Rowland, Cape and Islands Engineering. I'm here before you again, representing my client at 24 Pompanesett Island Road. What you have in front of you is a revised plan. I believe that, as you can see, I have incorporated a few things that you guys discussed at the last meeting. I've removed the bump out at the end on the right, as well as we've added through flow penetration decking for the entire extent of the boardwalk and pier. As part of the revised plan, I have also provided the Chapter 91 license. There are 2 Chapter 91 licenses for this structure. The first one was issued in 1967, and the current configuration was licensed in 1970. I also found it on aerials dating back from 1970. Currently, the site, presently the structure also has a certificate of compliance and an order of conditions that was approved by this commission at one point. I think that one of the other comments that you had was the guardrails, or sorry, the handrails being installed. So those are depicted on the cross-section and the side profile, as well as the profile down below. And we talked about the salt marsh in this project is not above a salt marsh. It is adjoining a salt marsh, but it is not over a salt marsh. So the through-flow decking is for the vegetation underneath it, but it's not shading the salt marsh as it's not directly above it. And then it is facing generally northeast to southwest, so during the winter months, and then even most of the time during the summer months, it shades on the northern side, and there's no salt marsh on the northern side. So I don't really see a time when this decking at all would shade the salt marsh. So I believe that I've kind of incorporated almost all your comments. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments? Didn't we, at one point, we had asked for mitigation rather than a shellfish, because there is no shellfish requirement? Do you recall that at the last meeting?
So that was briefly discussed. Not only does this bank have vegetation, there's also mitigation planting that was part of a previous approval, as shown on the northern side. I actually did speak to the shellfish constable, and he is amenable to accepting a mitigation assessment for shellfish seed used in the area, when I spoke to him this afternoon, actually.
In lieu of mitigation assessment, is that?
I mean, if you really are pushing the mitigation for an approved structure, I think that my client would be amenable to that. You had discussed the mitigation for the area that's over 200 square feet for the floats.
Alex, was that you that brought that up at the
I would
last
say
meeting?
it was something we could do. I think it was like either Sarah or us,
Yeah.
just that we can, like, we could have mitigation for the footprint of it if we wanted it. And I do appreciate that the whole thing is now the light penetrating.
And I believe we talked about the seating underneath the structure, right?
We were.
Yeah, so they would continue, they would be allowed to continue seating under the structure and things of that nature was also discussed, yes.
I had a note that we wanted them to bump up the mitigation or reduce the flow.
Right.
Was there a number associated with the shellfish constable?
So I ran some quick numbers, and the calculation I came up with was $1,104. For the mitigation above 200 square feet, so 184 square feet.
I mean, I think if they provided that, I'd be okay with it. I mean, because it's been previously permitted multiple times or approved.
Right, it's licensed for that amount.
Right.
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 So your mitigation overall would be the shellfish cost, the 1,104 plus the see-through decking for the whole dock? Is that what you're looking at as your overall mitigation package?
That'd be our, yeah,
Okay.
compromise or mitigation or.
Confirm.
And what was the date for the Chapter 91 license on this? Chuck, do you have that?
We have two Chapter 91 licenses. The
First one, 1967.
Yep.
Current configuration, 1970.
57 and 70?
67.
And then I think the.
And then
Chapter
the
91
current
package.
configuration was licensed in 1993.
Yes, correct.
1993.
Yeah, that's the form I saw. 93, yeah.
But the actual boardwalk and pier portion was originally licensed in,
But this float configuration was never constructed.
yes, sir, it was.
The way it is?
The way it is, that is currently constructed and it's fully licensed to be there. And there's an order, there's a Chapter 91 right here. And
So I thought the photographs I saw, this was just a straight float that went straight up, no?
I mean, I'll show you this to you, 93, there's a license.
Isn't it?
That's 3 weeks ago. It was thunder and lightning, it was amazing.
Okay, yep, it might have been the way I was looking at it. I didn't go down onto the property.
Yeah, so you can see it's all,
Yep.
2x6 decking basically right now, so.
Was that like a 3/4 inch space between them?
Something like that, it's fairly substantial.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty close. They were pretty close.
All right. Any other questions? Dan, anything else you want to add, or?
No, I think in lieu of the mitigation for the shellfish as well as the whole mitigation package, I think that is great for this project, simply because there's no expansion, it's just replacement in kind. And, yeah, especially since the floats are over 200 square feet, so I think that's a good compensation right there for that, so. So no concerns from me, no?
Questions from the public? Don't see any, don't hear any.
No, I got nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll accept the motion.
I'll make a motion to close an issue for 24 Cognizant Island Road. I don't know, with the time of year, is it within winter flounder habitat, like that?
I don't believe
No,
this
it
is.
applies, because I'm not driving inside. So,
Yeah,
I
they're
don't think
just-
there's really any conditions that I can think of that apply from what they've.
The shellfish mitigation.
That was the one I
Yeah.
forwarded.
Okay, yeah, with
And float through.
but the flow through is under some revised plans as it shows, so that's.
I don't think I need to revise the plans.
The shellfish.
No, you
mitigation.
should be all set.
And do you want to condition the seating beneath the,
And then
We should do
seating
that.
is allowed to continue.
yeah, okay. All right, so the fee and the seating. And that's it? Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Rich. Motion made and seconded. Up for discussion, deliberations. Anything else? Those two piles that are off to the side of the float, those are staying, correct?
They're staying in kind, they're being replaced, yes.
They're being replaced as well?
Yep, all existing boardwalk, pier, ramp, floats, and piles to be replaced in kind, yep.
And even, I'm talking about the two that are off the,
Yep, I have an arrow kind of pointing to one of them, but it's implied that both of them are being replaced.
yeah. existing pile, I see that, type of 26.
So then if that is being done, then that should be it should be between June and December.
We're fine with the time of year restriction.
Okay. Is that what you were thinking, or are you thinking something else?
I was just curious when I saw those two sitting out there by themselves, because they're not part, I didn't think it was part of the pier itself, but I do see that one marked on the plan. Did we get a letter from the Basin of Marine Fisheries on this? I don't recall seeing that.
Yes,
We did. What's the date on that, Chuck?
October 10th.
That's why I don't recall seeing it. I don't think we had that when we met last, right?
I'm not sure, but I was never given it. I had to request it. So.
From them?
Yes.
Do you remember seeing it? Because I don't remember seeing it either.
If they have any conditions that they've added.
Yeah,
The last meeting, other than commented that you guys haven't received it yet.
right. And that wasn't sent out in any of the packets that we were provided with. Do you remember seeing that, Dan?
That's what I'm checking for right now.
Could I take a look at the one that you have, Chuck?
It's up on the screen. If you'd like to see.
Oh. A lot easier, I just want to scan it quick. No, they don't have this classified for flounder at all. They do refer to float stops at 2.5 feet. Our regulations call for a foot. Are there float stops on this at all?
No, the way it's configured, it's not really possible to put in float stops. The 2.5 feet is from the shots that we took, it was one small corner.
Right, I see it, 2.1.
2.1, I mean, we're talking, and so the rest of it is outside of that 2.5. The float stops just aren't practical in this type of situation. But obviously the fuel spills and I think I can't remember what else.
Doesn't matter where you're. They do refer to it abutting the salt marsh. I'm not sure which side. I guess way up there at the top.
No, it's southern.
On the south side.
Yeah.
October 10th. It was sent out to everyone.
To us?
The marine fisheries, yeah.
I don't recall seeing that.
Yeah, they told me they sent it out to me, and I never saw it, so.
Yeah, it's the same day we got it. It seems like, was that October 10th?
Yeah.
When you got it, yeah, so that's the same day we did it. Okay.
When I asked for it, they were like shocked. They were like, Chuck, you got it. It's in our outbox
All right.
back, yeah. And that's what kind of spurred some of the salt marsh questions and the.
Always a piece of paper that slips through the cracks. But typically not through a meeting. Okay, I have nothing further to add unless you guys do. If not, I'll call for a vote. Do you have enough time to look at that, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, if they can't do the float stops, but our regs and DMM is saying they need to. Is that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
If they can't do the float stops, but
Right.
the DMF is saying they should,
Right.
our regs say they should.
Our regs call for 12 inches. So
Right. So if they just can't do them because of the configuration, where does that leave it?
Right.
I mean, these are typically seen as just comments from DMF, following comments for your consideration. I mean, I think that we're kind of splitting hairs here. I mean, we've conceded on a fair amount here. I don't think that what we're talking about is a significant adverse impact. I mean, it's very minor. We're talking probably about 3 inches to get between 2.1 and 2.5, or 4 inches. And I think that's very, very minimal. This is a fully licensed and approved dock. And we're just asking to essentially maintain it.
Yes, but you're not. You're taking out the piles and putting in new piles.
Right.
So like, that, I mean, that in itself is a huge disturbance, but I'm just wondering where we stand if a reg says one thing, and they're like, oh, well, we just can't, this is the way it's built.
Right.
So, I mean, I get it was previously licensed. You don't license docks, but another agency licensed it, whatever. I'm just asking.
Yeah. Just want to go back and look at 27 for a second.
Like on a moon tide, would those ever be sitting on the bottom?
I don't think so. I mean, that's to drop another 2 feet below mean low waters. I think that's more than a moon tide.
So, Alex, Performance Standard 6 in Regulation 27 says the combined size of all floats shall be consistent with the impact of the entire project on the protected values at the site, but not greater than 200 square feet, including jet skis and floats. A minimum depth of 12 inches of water measured at mean low tide is required under the floats.
Okay, so they have that.
They have it. Yeah.
Okay.
It meets Performance Standard 6. If they didn't, then they would have to put the stops in.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Okay. And I just got a text from Drew confirming that that letter was received on the 10th as well. For some reason, I don't have it. I don't know how I missed that, but it's all right.
It showed up as, the name of the letter showed up as something very different.
Yeah, I did a quick search, but it didn't come up. It's all right, I've seen it, so
All right.
I'm good with that. Okay, if there's no further deliberations, then I will call for a vote. Yes. Thank you, Rich. Alex?
We added in they're doing the shellfish mitigation fee.
We have,
Yes.
The shellfish mitigation fee and the continuing to seed.
Okay, it's been a while since we made the motion.
I know it, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. It's always good to know what you're voting on. Yep. So you're okay,
Yeah.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now calling the hearing for 50 Coastline Drive, Richard Miller. Proposed construction of pool house, representative is BSS Design. This is an RDA. and I do not have a DEP file number. Oh, I'm sorry. You thought you were good with the float stops. Okay. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Tom Bunker with BSS Design, and with me is Joe Anastos, contractor for the project. This is a buffer zone only project. It's to finish out the site plan for this house. In the narrative, I went through a little bit of the permitting history, but the house and the pool were approved by NOI and have been constructed. And a typo in my narrative that was pointed out to me that we're not building the pool house seaward of the pool, it's going landward of the pool. I had sent in a corrected narrative to them, so it's going landward of the pool, landward of everything there, as close to Coastline Drive as possible. So we're more than 100 feet, about 105 feet from the coastal bank, but we are within the 150-foot coastal bank buffer. There is also a flood zone, which actually is sort of, I pointed out in the narrative, this flood zone is shown coming well inland. It's elevation 16, but the ground elevation 29, and this area had been at one time was sloped down to the shore, and it was filled back up again, for this development in mind some time ago. And I printed these out just this evening. This is from Google Earth, the historical photos. So you can see from 1991. This area was used, as I said, it sloped down to the shore back in the 70s and 80s. You can see where this pool house is being proposed. There was no vegetation back in, it's not a clear photo, earlier than 1991. Just pointing that out, that there's, for a very long time, there's nothing there to protect other than the beach and the, whatever bank there was and everything, but vegetation-wise or habitat-wise, there's not. Anyway, we're putting up a pool house that's about 1,000 square feet. And it is within, we're about 150, almost 150 feet back from the coastal beach. We're more than 150 from the land under the ocean. But we're in the outer buffer zone of the coastal bank buffer there. The house, this whole area is on the New Seabury sewer system, so I thought, well, probably don't have to do the nitrogen loading calculations, but then I asked Drew and Dan, and they said I should do them. And, we're going from like 8.85% to 0.7% concentration, but that did bring up another point that as I did this exhibit for the lawn area to go with the nitrate calculations, because the house is covering about 1,000 square feet of what is now lawn area, which will be, so it's reduced, and I sort of did a quick takeoff, and we're about 70 square feet above 10%, and we will reduce it to no more than 10% of the lot area, which will be 2,220, which is 10% of 22,200. So right now in my nitrogen calculations, I have 2,290 square feet of lawn, but it will be reduced. It will be, I think if we get a proper landscape plan, we can certainly show that it will keep it not more than the 10% allowed under your regulations there. It was pointed out I didn't have the dry wells on there. We'll certainly put the dry wells on also for the roof runoff. And as far as mitigation, there is room out there at the front. This bank area every year gets some sand replenishment, and so perhaps every year, you might have to plant, as part of this, put beach grass back in the traveled area where the entire area here, where say there's more than 3,000 square feet, that whole area is not disturbed by trucking in sand, but it can keep that replenished with the beach grass after the sand is put in there on a yearly basis, and that will improve that. It'll improve the sand holding capability of it as the beach grass will collect the sand, and it would not have to be replenished as much, and also get some habitat for some of the shorebirds, also improve that. So that's basically, I think it's it's probably, it's a fairly benign project, I believe. As I Drew, I think it recommended that we could do it as an RDA here. So I think I've covered it. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions from commissioners?
Is the pool house considered an ADU?
I don't believe so.
There's no kitchen facilities in there.
I said there's no habitable space, there's no kitchen. If it was, I don't know how that would go.
Well, yeah, because I just think I mean, if it doesn't apply, it doesn't apply, but I think our ADU bylaws were like 800 or 850 square feet.
Yeah, well, the 1,000 square feet includes the porch.
I see. Right.
The porch, deck, whatever, the deck there. So I think the structure itself is under that, obviously.
Right.
But you bring up the thought, it is a pool house, and, I've got my vision of what a pool house is, but other people build things sometimes that are a little more extravagant. Is there plumbing facilities inside this proposed pool house?
Which plumbing, you said?
Toilets? And
Toilet?
There's one bathroom.
There's a bathroom?
Yeah.
And
It's an entertainment
has the-
area.
Have the plans been shown to the Board of Health? It says no comment on my...
It's on the sewer system.
It doesn't matter for flow neutral, whether it's on a sewer system or a septic. You can only have so many bedrooms per
Right.
acre.
There's no bedroom in this facility. It's
Right.
all open space.
So it's all open space.
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah, we have copy of the plans here.
I have
Right.
drafts. They're final plans. But
Well, that's why, I'm just prodding that question. Could it be used as an overnight type of thing for somebody, like she was mentioning ADU, but I'm not seeing it as an ADU, I'm seeing it as a place to sleep and become a bedroom. And then it would have to be looked at as another bedroom.
Yeah, I know, I talked to Board of Health because they were curious about some of the plans, and I told them, it's in an area that's sewered as well as there was no bedroom associated with it.
Right.
So they didn't have any concerns from there at all, so.
I also spoke to the building commissioner about the project. He had no issues as well.
Right. Okay. Other questions? So we're looking at 1,944 square feet of mitigation?
That's what, yes. Yeah, I didn't bring my narrative,
Right.
didn't bring the narrative with me, but whatever I had in there, yeah.
And that's all going to go into that,
There's an area, there's a closer area to the house was part of the mitigation area for the house itself, the house and the pool.
right.
And then there's more than 3,000 square feet in that beach maintenance area. And so we have like 1,900 square feet of mitigation, so it would fit in there.
So you're talking the area between the beach maintenance easement
And the
and
top
the
of
glass fence?
And the top of the bank. Yeah. And that gets traveled over every year, and there's nothing being put back, really, but it would be planted.
And I assume that would be around springtime, because the winter obviously takes the biggest beating.
Yeah, they typically stay away from the row of the natural seagrass that is there.
They do, okay.
It doesn't really go into that section. It's a little further towards the water.
All right.
And they put a tremendous amount of sand in there every year.
Oh, I'm aware.
Yes, you are.
That I'm aware.
Daily activity.
It's crazy.
And that's trucked in and they have a front end loader that they use?
I believe so.
Yeah, they have it's like a 15-ton front-end loader. That access road is
The trucks go down.
set in stone almost, even though it's sand, so.
Have you looked at the quiet logs since the last washout down there?
Yes, when was I there last? I was there last, not, this winter Drew went, there was no issues. I went last winter, because the core logs were exposed last winter.
Yeah, I got pictures of that.
So at that point, there was no damage to them. All there was concerns of between the wooden posts, there was some actual boulders, like not rocks, actual decent-sized foot-long boulders that have to be taken out. So that was the only concern we saw at the time. We didn't see any concern with the core logs at the time. So, yeah, the project itself seems to be holding up as long as they bring the sand in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? No? Good. Anything else you want to add, Dan?
No, this is a sewer system here. This is all pre-existing grass. Anything we can do, I think, within the means to get rid of lawn is always a plus, especially in an area where this is all sand down here, this whole area. So, percolation rates are very high when it comes to fertilizer and stuff. And the fact that they're adding mitigation and willing to add mitigation when needed, if it is harmed, is a huge bonus for this area, as we just discussed. So
Sure.
I have no concerns with this project.
What conditions, I mean, we don't typically love putting conditions on an RDA, but what conditions would we need to put on this? No more than, I mean, Tom mentioned no more than 10% of the lot, of the property will be lawn.
And then for the replantings, just replant in the spring as needed. That would just be it, as needed. And essentially, they would contact the agents, and then we would ask them, give us a hard number of what you need, let's do an on-site, look at it, see what the hard number is, and at that point, it's going to be quite the amount of grass, obviously, that has to be planted, but.
So are you going to be looking at it every time they need to plant, or is it?
Only if they need to plant. Only if they need to plant. If there's no planting that needs to happen for the upcoming spring, then there'd be no need for us to go out. If it comes to a year or two and we're seeing that it has to be done every year, I would just say, just do it in the spring, first chance. There's no need for me to come out because it's already happening again, just do it.
Right, I'm just apprehensive of something that you guys have to do all the time, because you have a lot of things you have to do all the time.
Yeah. With this area here, I am not concerned because we're already there to monitor the sand, in all seriousness, so.
All right. Any questions from the public? But I don't see anybody behind you two guys, so I think we might be okay. All right, I'd accept a motion.
I'll make a motion for a negative determination for the RDA for 50 Coastline Drive.
Okay, and did you want to attach any conditions on that? No, at all? Other than what's been proposed?
Yeah, I mean, I think he proposed everything, I don't think
Right.
we need to.
So
Yeah, it's in
we're good.
the application.
Okay.
It's in-
And Sandy, second?
Yes, second.
Motion made and seconded for commissioners to deliberate. Any other thoughts before I call? We're good? Okay, roll call vote. Richard? Alex?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We have two certificate of compliance requests, one from 174 Captain's Row, the other is... Sure. We're going to take a 2-minute recess.
2 minutes? We should just do that all the time, we know, all the time. Well, yeah, really.
So, I'll sign them during the recess.
I was gonna say, actually, it's not bad,
I get to sign.
Yeah.
2 certificate of compliance requests. Both of these have passed. One was for 174 Captain's Road, the other 389 Monomoskoye Road. So I just wanted to read those in to the record. Going back to our pre- and post-hearing agenda, we have 3 listed approval of draft meeting minutes. One of them, we don't have those minutes as yet. The other 2, we do not have enough commissioners here to vote on those, so all 3 of those are going to have to go on hold until our next meeting. Under discussion items, water quality issues and initiatives, is there anything someone would like to bring forward?
No, just really quick, I'm a little looking into lately confused as to why the Cape Cod towns don't qualify for reverse osmosis for the whole cities, for all their towns, when inland towns like Stoughton, Easton have been fully funded, if not partially funded by the state government to have them installed. So been looking into that, the confusion as to why our water quality in a green nitrogen shed, because people aren't even aware that we can apply for these machines to have our water in town fully reverse osmosis and cleaned of PFAS, nitrogen, all that.
Wow.
So I know Easton did it, that's where I'm from, and their whole entire town, which is a population far bigger than Mashpee's, is all in reverse osmosis for the whole city.
That's
So
for drinking water?
everything, shower, you name it. And that was, I believe, almost fully funded. So I've been looking into that, but that's it. So,
I'll be interested to hear more about that.
topic of interest, you know?
Yeah.
So at the same time, that could also clean the water because you're physically removing the contaminants from it, so.
Wow. Anything else? Water quality? No. Okay, I'm going to drop down to Regulation 25, and I'm going to bring the update for Regulation 25 from down below in that other section up and do the both at the same time. We did meet as a subcommittee this week. I believe it was it Monday? Tuesday. And we made substantial progress on all of the commissioners' concerns that were brought forward. In fact, we've pretty much finished those up. I'm still waiting to hear back from Sarah on one detail. And we have a couple of issues that we've kind of pushed ahead to town council to take a look at. But we are coming very close. I hope within the next meeting of our subcommittee, we might pretty much have a final document to bring back to the full commission with the hopes that it gets adopted, but that remains to be seen. But stay tuned on that. Our November 7th agenda, as you already have been told, we are going to begin that meeting with executive session in regards to 425 Monomoskoye Road. That will be at 6 o'clock, and we expect the executive session to go 40 minutes or so.
45 minutes or so, yeah.
We'll take a little bit of a break. So at 7 o'clock, we will begin our quarterly update meeting. I'm happy to confirm for you guys that Rebecca Haney she's a coastal geologist from the Coastal Zone Management, is going to, I'm not sure if she's coming physically or if she's coming via Zoom. I assume it's Zoom, but
I will be finding out.
I'll confirm that with her, because I do want to give her a couple of updates on some of the things we've been working on in Regulation 25. But she's going to come and give us a lot of information about coastal resiliency layers and a lot of the information that Heather McElroy had presented with, I forget the other woman that was with her, I forget her name, from the Cape Cod Commission. So it'll be good to hear another version of that work that's going on. So that's coming on the 7th. And if you have any other items that you want to add to that agenda, I'd like to get that thing finalized ASAP so we can get it up and posted and be done with it.
I know 2 items. One I put on there was you for the review bylaw subcommittee to have that discussion, as well as Chapter 173 conservation lands. Just to have an update on that.
Yep. And now that you've jogged my memory on conservation lands, I'm going to be attending a workshop Saturday morning up in Chatham on cultural easement language for conservation lands. That's being put on by the Native Lands Conservancy. in conjunction with the Friends of the Pleasant Bay, I believe it is. And it's a workshop that goes from 9 to 12. But I had met with a couple of people from Native Lands Conservancy quite a while back, and they said, would you be interested in? And I said, I would love to attend that, so they invited me to go out. So I'll report back at our November 7th meeting what I found out about that.
I would just love to hear at that meeting, like an actual update of where the upper Quashnet restoration lies.
Oh, we can do that. Yeah, we're hot in the mix right now for that.
Okay.
So we can definitely give an update on all, like a hard update on all the restorations, especially the Quashnet. Yes, because next week I'll have an update before the November 7th. So yeah, we can do that.
And like the fish ladder too, that one that they're doing over by Mashpee.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know.
that was permitted.
I know it was,
Yeah.
but when I was moving permanent, it didn't look like that on the plan.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Still a work in action, that's for certain. But there will be an update for that as well because the NRCS and all the funding from NOAA has not come through, but we've gotten more word on it. So I'll have an update by then as well.
okay, that sounds awesome.
All right, and other than that, I have no other discussion items. So I'll turn it over to Dan if there's anything here that you wanted to bring before the commissioners on updates.
No, the herring count numbers are in, they are official. So Mashpee River blew out the entire Cape this year by thousands. It wasn't even close. John's Pond, with the amount of counters there and with the amount of activity, that one had the kind of par, same one. And then Santuit, we did not get a reading this year for it. The rationale for that was because obviously we have issues with the fish ladder and that's being addressed literally currently. Also, that one, there was just, the fish counters kind of got a little discouraged. We still had enough fish counters, but they were just discouraged because it's tough to watch fish just kind of get beaten up constantly. But also what we've been noticing as well, and the MITC grant will have more insight on this because their camera, is that some of the fish were going up at night, it seems. So obviously I don't have counters out then. But also this year there was a program by the state that they came in and they took some herring out of the Santuit ladder to relocate them to other areas where there either was no herring or there was an issue with the number of herring. Because, and the reason they did that is because the Santuit ladder has such a extremely large amount of herring backlogged in it constantly, that it was just an opportunity to say, we have them here, let's get them, let's put them somewhere else, just at least to get them breeding still.
And who moves those?
Marine fisheries.
Marine fisheries.
Yeah, fisheries. So, marine fisheries or Fish and Wildlife. Can't remember which one it was, but they were both involved in the project.
Yeah.
So, so the Santuit Pond ladder did not get a reading this year for estimated run size, but the other two did. And Mashpee River was just 16,000.
It's a hot spot.
Yeah, so the Coonamessett River, they know that they go at night, so
Yeah.
it would make sense.
Well, that's what we're
There's
getting,
a lot that we're missing.
especially since you're getting a backlog of 5,000 to 10,000 at a time. I mean, for a day or two straight.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, the next day, they're all gone. And, you know, I'm there at like 7:30 in the morning, so I'm like, yeah, they have to be going at night.
They do.
So that was good. I will send the numbers out for that, just so everyone's up on that. Again, we'll give an update on Red Brook, Upper Quashnet, all the restorations going on. And then real quick, just John's Pond, there was milfoil that was noted by a resident. So Drew has gone through and years back, there was a permit, 4 or 5 years back, there was a permit for eradication of milfoil on John's Pond, so he's using the same company to do a follow-up. Yeah, something like that. They're still active. They're still active.
Yeah.
So they're going to go in, they're going to do an assessment, and they're going to then go through the process of treating and permitting if need be, depending on what needs to be done first. So, and other than that, we're pretty much good.
One last thing that I forgot, I did plug in some dates for our quarterly meetings for next calendar year. I didn't have those dates when we accepted the dates at our last meeting. And the dates that I came up with are February 27, May 29, August 28, and November 20. It was impossible to find a 2-week split between meetings, so we have to have some back-to-back. Sorry about that, but because they're quarterly meetings, I thought the best thing to do is break them up in the quarters of the year. So Again, it's February 27th, May 29th, August 28th, and November 20th. And there was talk at our last meeting of changing that from 6 to 6:30, so that all of our
I think
meetings...
we made it 6 because mine, we wanted it earlier, but, I mean, they should be the same because then it's.
Right, there was talk at our last meeting about keeping them consistent so people aren't...
Yeah, that's better for
Yeah.
people to get there.
So if those dates are appropriate, I'd ask for approval from the commissioners. We have a majority here.
227, 529, 8.
28 and 11/20.
In the mill flow permit is still active. I'm sorry, Drew just messaged me.
Wait. 5. It's 529.
Five?
It's like the holiday weekend, isn't it?
I don't believe so.
Because it's not Memorial Day. So it would just be like right there.
Hold on. 25. May-
Oh, no, I think
No.
maybe it's the 26th.
26 is Memorial Day. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then November 20th was, no, August 28th and November 20th.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about those? Are you okay with that, or, you know, there are suggestions that I
Yeah,
came up with?
it's fine.
I think it works.
Sound good? Nothing planned for those days?
Hopefully after July I'll be retired, so my schedule might.
You'll be looking for something to do, right?
But it might not, I'm not sure. I can make it.
Okay, I'll email those dates over to Drew in the morning. And unless there are additional topics, anybody has? I only missed by 15 minutes. I was hoping for 8:30, but it's 8:45.
We're good. Perfect.
So I'd accept a motion to adjourn if there is one.
Nate.
Thank you, Alex. Is there a second?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.